What's going on, everybody? Cole Simonson here, and today we are starting another European mount on my girlfriend Ellen's deer. If you haven't caught that hunt, check up in the top of the corner here. I'll put a tab so you can click to that and watch that hunt. Anyways, this one's going to be a little bit different though. We're going to keep the bottom jaw, and that's a little bit different than anyone else does, but it's not much more of a process. You just got to be a little bit more careful when you're making your cuts and cleaning up the skull, and just be careful with the lower jaw because it is a lot more fragile than the skull itself. So we're gonna start with pretty much cutting all the hide and meat and getting that skull as clean as we can before it goes into the degreasing boil. And we're just gonna cut and make sure we get all the big chunks off, so it just makes it easier for us. Now you see I just made one long cut down the middle here and made that really nice and clean, and then just started peeling off the skin and cutting all the chunks of meat as I can and go along with it. Like I said, we're saving the bottom jaw, so we're being very careful with that. We're going to clean all that up, get the tongue out, break the jaw off actually, and I'll show you where we break it in a couple here, but so far we're just getting the chunks off. And if you guys have trouble along the base of this horn getting it really clean, what you'll want to do is you'll want to make your incision with your knife up to the base of the horn, and I always cut it just in half here. Make a nice cut right in there and get it to the base of the horn, and then from there what I do is I take a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, and I just go right up to the base of that horn and I start peeling it, and you just work that flathead around the base of that horn, and it'll get right underneath that base there, and you're actually able to get it right up against their follicle there and peel it off. If you just keep working at it with a flathead, it comes off really nice and clean, a lot like that. So I'm going to keep working on this here, and we're going to get it done, and I'll catch you in a few. Alright guys, we got him all cleaned out. This all came off of him. Now if you have a little bit of vertebrae left right here back at the brainstem, all you have to do is just keep flexing that vertebrae back and forth and taking your knife and just cutting around it, and it'll eventually open up to where you can see the where the vertebrae meets the skull, and just kind of cut around in there and just bend it back and forth and keep working your way. Be nice and gentle with it, but you can just keep working your way around and it'll eventually just come off, and there's a nice little circle here where it attached like that, and eventually just comes off. To remove the tongue, All you have to do is just make a cut right down in there. Just be careful. Just cut all the way up in there here. Back here on this skull here, you'll have these little bones right below the eardrum pretty much, and it's fine to break them off, and actually you need to take them off. They're kind of annoying, but if you just keep pulling on them and just cutting around the meat, they'll eventually come off in a chunk like that right there. You can see that. So you just kind of got to keep cutting around. There's a lot of meat underneath those eardrums, so you want to get that all out, and we're just going to keep cutting on this deer here. Pretty much wherever there's red meat, cut it off, and we're eventually going to get the jaw off here real soon, as soon as I get a bunch of gunk off of there. So we're just going to keep cutting, and that's all you got to do. You just keep cutting and cutting and cutting, and eventually you'll have this skull so pretty clean to where when you boil it, you'll just be able to spray off the leftover stuff. It's a lot of knife work, so you got to be really, really careful, but that's how you get those eyes out. All right, now it's time to take off this jaw. What you got to do, yes, I'm using a havalon now because the other one's got dull and most of the rough stuff is over with, but what you got to do is you just cut up into the jaw here, get this loose so that jaw's kind of flopping around. All you got to do, just nice and easy, just pull on it. And I'm wanting to save the jaw, so I am being extra careful. And you just keep pulling, 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 and eventually that jaw just comes all the way out like that. And we're gonna clean that up after we get done with the skull, the main part of the skull, but that's super easy, comes out really nice. And then all we need to do is we just need to start cleaning off this stuff. Really get all this cheek meat and top of the skull and the jaw meat out of there, and then it's ready to go into the first boil. So we're gonna keep cutting here. Alright, we got this pretty clean. We got the front of the nose taken off there. That's all cartilage. And then once we boil it, we'll get that inside cartilage taken care of. You see there is a lot of meat back here, but it's got a lot of cuts in it and it's been pulled. So there's very few just hanging on solidly. So that'll should boil right off and be able to be sprayed off really easily. But the face is really clean. We got pretty much all the nasty stuff off of it. So now it's time to wrap the horns in saran wrap, tape them up really good, and start to boil it in our degreasing boil. I like to put about he'll take about 2 scoops of just any type of kind of detergent. Just throw it in there. Get it mixed around really good. You want it just right to the base of his horns like it is there. Take that out. Now we're just going to get this boiling really good and get it boiling so good that the membrane on the skull starts peeling off. That's when we're able to pressure wash it. So we're going to let this boil. It usually takes anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes depending on how much water you have and how much heat you have going. But in the meantime, we're going to go get everything else set up. See, we're about to boil. You see all this yellow stuff in here? That's actually grease coming out of the skull. So that's the stuff that will discolor your skull if you don't get it out. We're boiling now, so we'll let it boil for a few minutes and get that membrane loose, and then we'll pull it out and we'll start spraying. Alright, we've been boiling for about 10 minutes. As you can see, that membrane's pulled off of there. So what we want to do next is we're going to turn this off and we're going to leave the jaw in there so it stays warm, and then we're going to go spray this skull because that's the longest part. But yeah, that's going to come all off with that with the pressure washer. All we do here is we just start spraying, just like when we were cutting. Just spray, spray, spray. Alright, we've been spraying and spraying and spraying. You can see how clean that's coming. We still need to do the nasal cavity here, which we're getting loose. There's still a couple things around the eye sockets, but so far the top of the skull's good. Back here, there's these little divots, and they hold a lot of meat, and you got to spray those a lot. But what we're going to do now is, if you can see it, there's a little hole right here. Okay, that's their earbuds, and right behind that, it holds a ton of gunk, and it actually goes into the brain cavity. So all I do is I just grab a small screwdriver or any small bar. What I do is I just pop those out. Pull all that out, and that's what comes out. That's all gunk. It's all just nasty stuff right in there. And you want that out of there. It doesn't damage the skull at all. And it actually makes cleaning into the brain a lot easier. And if you have like a small wafer bit, just drill a small hole out of there. Makes cleaning that whole brain area so much easier. I don't have one at the time, but that's the way to do that. It makes it really nice, really clean. We'll get all that other gunk out there and get this next one. Also, especially like I said on these young deer, their skulls aren't fully developed yet, so this stuff right back in here, that nasal cavity, very, very thin. I don't worry too terribly much just because you won't see that on the mount, but it is nice to keep that clean, and just for the way it looks, pretty much, just to keep it clean and make it look nice. You can save that stuff if it comes out, but you don't really need to. Like I said, if you're mounting it like that, no one will ever see it. So we're going to get this other earbud out and keep spraying. Yeah, just see how easy that came out with that. So, but yep, just spray, spray, spray. Get every single chunk of meat out of there you can. If you need to, get a knife again and just keep cleaning it. Make sure there's nothing left. The last thing you want is a skull to stink inside the house after about 3 months of being there. So we're going to keep spraying. Now you're gonna see right here, this is the nasal cavity of this deer. It's all cartilage that has to come out or else you will not get a clean skull. So what I do is I take a pair of forceps, get back in there, and you just start pulling all that gunk out. There's just gonna be a bunch of just crap and cartilage in there. See, there's all that. That's just nasty membrane. You want that just out of there before you boil this skull, because if that doesn't come out, you won't have a clean skull, and it'll start stinking in the long run. So, just want to show you, this is what was in that nasal cavity. You can see right there, there's another piece. It's on the lower section of the cavity, so just go in low on that, grab. Right there, just like that. That's all the nasty stuff. To get it really clean, just put your sprayer on a lighter spray, and you can put it up in there and get a lot of that stuff loose and freed up, so you aren't having to just keep digging stuff out. But so look at all that nasty stuff come out of there. A lot of people can do this in one go and just pull everything out, and I have yet to learn that trick. So even look, he had grass up in his nose still. I don't know why you'd be eating through your nose, but as you can see, that nasal cavity is pretty clean. We still got some gunk way back there, but when we do the brain, we can get most of that out too. Like I said, these young deer are so fragile. I did break a little bit of stuff in there, which is always a bummer because I always like how cool those look, but that is what it is. It just happens. So we're gonna keep spraying them down and get all that brain matter out. Best way to do that is just put that hose down in there and just spray, and then take a pair of forceps and pull the rest out. Well, as you can see, it's pretty clean here. Did lose a couple small pieces of bone in the nasal cavity. You can see up in there we lost those kind of fragile nasal ones, but the nasal cavity didn't come out in a hole, so I had to kind of wrestle with it and really had to blow it out. But you know, all that happens when you're doing these younger deer. It's kind of a win some, lose some thing. I wasn't able to get all the nasal cavity out, so that was my bad to begin with. But we're gonna go get him ready for the pot and get the jaw done here real quick and get these boiling before it gets dark. And there's the lower jaw. That took a lot less effort than that skull did. That's why we kind of did it last. But actually, there's one more. Here's these little holes right in here you got to blow out. I got to blow that out real quick too. But other than that, this thing's ready for the pot. But when you're spraying anything, just pretty much every hole, just spray into it. Make sure there's no meat in there, and you'll get these things clean. So we're gonna get this finished up here real quick and throw it in the pot. All right, so we're only gonna put 140 volume hydrogen peroxide in here, just because of the size of the skull. And like last time, you just want it right up to the base of the horns. That's good right there. We might even have a little bit too much. Get that out of there. But we'll set this up a little bit, just like that. As you can see, the water's right at the base of the horns there. We got our tape taped really nice and good, tight to those follicles on the horns. So now we just boil it and let the hydrogen peroxide do its thing. So the skull's starting to boil. Now, right now we'll wait about 5 minutes and check it. And then if it still looks like it needs a little more time, we'll put it in for another 5. Usually takes about 10 to 12 minutes to get that perfect, nice white, what we're looking for. We'll just watch the boil, maintain the temperature, see how it's going up a little bit on those horns. We're going to want to back this off a little bit. We don't want it above to start moving too high up the horns. But we'll just keep it at a nice little boil like that and start our timer. It's been about 5 minutes here. Pull it out. Looks pretty good. Nice and white. We're going to put this in for a couple more minutes here just because it is a little bit darker around here. When you first pull these out, they won't look the bleach white. They'll actually have like a caramelish color to them. Once you spray it off and dry it out and all that moisture actually comes out and the liquid hydrogen peroxide really does its work, then that's when you'll see it become that bleach white kind of look. So don't worry if it doesn't look perfectly white coming out of the pot. Once you let it air dry for a few hours or even a day, like I'll let this one air dry overnight and into tomorrow afternoon, that's when you'll really see it starting to whiten up and really really show how pretty it can get. So we're just gonna let this boil. Definitely, since I only have one bottle in there, we're gonna let it go for another 5 minutes or so. The jaw's also looking really good, nice and pretty. We'll let that sit a little bit longer too. But other than that, this is coming out really nice. So we're just gonna let it keep boiling. Alright, it's been about 12 minutes or so. But you can see how nice and white that is. Whew. Don't want to breathe in that stuff. But we're gonna go give that a finishing wash with the pressure washer, just a nice little go over, and it'll be done. So you gotta get the jaw out of here too. Well, there it is for right now. Anyways, we're gonna let this air dry overnight and into tomorrow, and then I will show you how I attach the jaw and how I make everything work so you can actually mount it to the wall or your pedestal. So we'll see you guys tomorrow.